Today we're going to talk about how to calculate numbers on a rental property so that you can ensure you buy a deal that actually cash flows, not just notionally cash flows. And the reason I think this is important is I saw a group the other day. They sent out an email showcasing a win for their a member of their group, and they were saying, "Oh, look at all this cash flow." And what it said was, "Hey, the property, the mortgage, the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance is $1,500 a month, and the rental income is $1,500 a month. The mortgage, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance is $1,200 a month. Therefore, our coaching student, client, whatever, earns $300 a month in cash flow." And I just cringed, because the idea that you're teaching people and coaching and you're an educator in the real estate space, and you say that income minus principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, mortgage equals cash flow is just ridiculous. And we're going to dig into that. So I want to make sure you don't fall into this trap, and I definitely want to make sure you can spot this so that if you see somebody pushing that as a win in their group, you know to stay the hell away from that group, because you do not want to get sucked into that coaching, because that's not really cash flow. They're just trying to hype numbers to make people in the community look more successful, to lure you in, because they're really making money on the education, the coaching, and not really, that's their vested interest, not necessarily your success. So I digress. I'm going to get off my soapbox. We're going to dig in. I'm going to show you what you actually want to run for numbers and give you a much better idea. And to do this, we're going to try to use some really easy numbers. And I used to do this with a $100,000 property. We're going to change everything to $200,000 because prices have gone up, and that's a little bit more realistic. I don't want to get super crazy, but we're going to do a $200,000 single family home, right? So we've got a 200K. Let's say it's a 3, 2, and it's a single family house, right? Just so that we have some point of reference for what this property is. And let's say that it's a 1% rule property, meaning that the 1% rule is a general rule of thumb. I got more details on this on the site, but if a property is $200,000, gross monthly rent on it should be at least $2,000, 1% of the purchase price, in order to guarantee or have a good chance of success as a cash flowing rental. So let's say that this one meets that box. So we bring in $2,000 a month in gross rental income. Now the income column is pretty simple, because there it is. Now there are situations where you're going to have other income streams, and you're going to have things like maybe a coin laundry in a larger unit, or a vending machine, or maybe some rubs, meaning that the tenants pay utilities and you bill it back, and you can actually bill in utilities into your income and make it a little bit more profitable, perhaps. Just some additional things periodically that you might make some extra income on. But for a single family house like this, you're pretty much relegated to that gross monthly income, unless you're like also renting out the garage as a storage unit, or some like an RV on the lot or something. So we're going to keep it simple, and we're going to say that $2,000 a month, that's what you're bringing in. Now, for expenses, on a $200,000 home, reasonable to assume that your principal, taxes, insurance, and interest. Principal, interest, taxes, insurance. I had it right. I just, for some reason, forgot I said one of them. So your PITI, your full mortgage payment, let's say it's $1,000. That's, it's rough math, but I usually like every $100,000 is about $500 added to your payment if you include taxes and insurance, right? So we'll say it's $1,000. So right off the top, $1,000. Now, let's say on this property, you're not paying utilities, you're not on the hook for internet or anything else. The tenant is taking care of their own landscaping. The tenant's paying for their trash. So we'll keep it fairly simple. Now, I budget 7% for maintenance, repairs, CapEx, and vacancy, and property management. So we're going to run that into this, but just so you know, we're gonna use 10% for property management because that's kind of the standard across the board. I pay 7% because I got a lot of rentals with my current property manager, and I got in when she was first starting, so I got a decent discount. So let's say for property management, 10% of the gross monthly rent, so that's $200 a month, right? So $1,200. Then we're gonna say that we are at 7% that we're budgeting for maintenance, 7% that we're budgeting for CapEx. Now the difference here is maintenance is things like changing out air filters, light bulbs, maybe you need some turnover, some paint, something like that. The CapEx is things like, hey, we got to replace the flooring. It doesn't add value to the house per se, but it's got to happen. The roof, the budget for a new roof, and make sure this isn't important. Oh, don't recognize the number. Things like budgeting for a new roof, new appliances, new HVAC, new furnace, stuff like that. So you want to budget at least 7% for that every month. Even though you may not have $140 in expenses, you want to put that money aside so that when the roof does go out, you're ready for it. And then we're going to budget 7% for vacancy. Now, there are people out there who say, well, you really only need to budget 5% for vacancy. That's implying that you'll have one vacancy every like 2 years. It's not really realistic, and it depends on how fast you can fill that vacancy. So I always give it the extra 7%. So the reality is that, you're probably not going to pay 7% every month for maintenance, and you're probably not going to pay 7% every month for CapEx, and you're probably not going to pay 7% every month for vacancy. But over time, you want to be budgeting for those things because they will happen. You don't have to save the $140 every month for vacancy. You can count that as cash flow when it happens. But once you have a vacancy, 1 month at $1,000 a month eats up whatever that math is, 7.5 months worth of saving for this. So if you have the property for a year, you're probably going to tap into 7 or 8 months worth of that. And then you just want to be budgeting for it. So this is how you factor and count for those unfixed costs, the things that are going to happen over time. You're not going to have to replace a roof and pay $140 a month. But if you're not saving that $140 a month, when the roof goes out, you're going to be caught. What does they say? When the tide goes out, you can see who's been swimming naked. Same thing with this. When you finally have to replace all that stuff, and if you don't have any money set aside, you're going to know that you didn't have any money set aside, and it could break you. So the whole name of this game is budgeting for these things so that you don't get screwed. So right off the top here, we've got 1,000, 200, 280, 320, 420. So that's 420, 620. So we're just going to do the math here. So 1620. Now I'm sure that we could find some other things, like there's a good chance that a lot of times you're going to pay for the trash, right? So if you're paying for trash, that's another 30, 40, 50 bucks, whatever. But just these basic numbers, you can see, hey, on this property, you're going to walk away with 380 in cash flow. Now, on a property that's a little bit more expensive like this, I would probably budget maybe a little bit higher on CapEx, maybe a little bit higher. It's up to you. But you can say you reasonably assume $300, $400 a month on average net cash flow. And that's not bad. But if you were buying this property thinking, hey, it's going to make $2,000, I'm going to pay $1,000, and I'm going to have $1,000 a month in cash flow, well, you'd be $620 a month disappointed. And so it's important to understand this and understand how to analyze these deals. Now, you're going to want to know tax rates in your area, and you're going to want to be able to look up the utilities and all these things and make sure you're not paying utilities to really make sure that you're covered in case something crazy goes down. But this is the basics. So I just wanted to show you this so that A, you understand quickly how to analyze a property. It's really not that complicated. Income minus all expenses equals potential cash flow. Now, that's easy. Does this make a good deal? Potentially. Depends on how much money you put in. $380 a month if you put $10,000 in, pretty sweet. $380 a month if you paid cash for the house, not so sweet. So there's a lot of different variables for this. There's a couple of rules of thumb too. Another rule of thumb is the 50% rule, which means that these expenses minus the mortgage would equal 50%. So you could assume via that this would be a break-even property unless your mortgage was only like $800 a month. So that's more conservative. But the point here with rentals and cash flow and properties and analytics is understanding that it's much better to be overly conservative and have more cash flow than it is to be not as conservative and get just totally screwed. So don't fall into the trap of thinking gross income minus mortgage equals cash flow. And anyone who's telling you that is not somebody that's worth listening to about anything real estate investing, because they either don't know what they're doing and they shouldn't be coaching you, or they don't care and they're just trying to get your business and you shouldn't be listening to them. So the one other point that I wanted to make here before we log off is to make sure that you subscribe to the channel if you find any of this useful. And if you'd like more of these whiteboard videos where we're breaking stuff down, let me know. I'm totally down to do these and walk you through some of these ideas. I just want to make sure it's worth your time and you're actually getting something out of these videos. So make sure you subscribe, smash that like button, and comment down below what else you would like to see broken out on a whiteboard. Have a great day.